Yo, what is up guys? Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So, Anthony Joshua's return to the ring has now been announced. He will return on April Fool's, April the 1st. Not great marketing when you consider how Joshua's career has gone in the last couple of years or so. But regardless, Joshua is returning on April 1st, and he will be facing Jermaine Franklin as his comeback fight. Now, what do I make of this? Well, I think there's two ways to look at this. Anthony Joshua is a guy coming off 2 losses to Alexander Usyk, and actually, when you look at it, he's actually only won 2 of his last 5 fights. So Anthony Joshua, his confidence is going to be down. He's not on great form. You know, changing trainers, etc. I believe he is now with Derek James, according to reports. So there's a lot of change in regards to Anthony Joshua's career. And again, he's coming off back-to-back losses. So this sort of opponent, in my opinion, is ideal for Anthony Joshua, given the circumstances and what Joshua's coming off from. I think Jermaine Franklin is ideal. A step down in competition. A confidence booster, you know. Jermaine Franklin, he isn't complete trash, but at the same time, he's not a top 10 heavyweight in my opinion. Did quite well against Dillian Whyte, especially early on, was boxing well, showed pretty good defense at times, covered up against Dillian, and gave Dillian trouble throughout that fight. I felt he just about lost it. I felt Dillian came on strong towards the end, hurt Jermaine Franklin at the end of that fight. I felt Dillian just about won, but Jermaine Franklin proved in that fight that he can look after himself without necessarily giving any of the top heavyweights any real issues, if that makes sense. You know, Dillian Whyte, in my opinion, is significantly past his best at this stage. But yeah, he acquitted himself quite well in that fight. And, you know, Jermaine Franklin could be the type of guy who maybe takes Anthony Joshua a few rounds, gives Joshua a chance to implement things that he's been working on in the gym with Derek James. And ultimately, you know, regardless of that though, Jermaine Franklin should be a guy to where Joshua can knock him out and score a good knockout at that. I think that's the sort of fight Joshua needs on his comeback. A guy who can maybe take him 5 or 6 rounds, but then eventually get knocked out. I don't believe Jermaine Franklin will offer too much offensively coming back. He's got a quick little jab and a decent counter at times, but he's not a big puncher. He's not really a high volume guy, Jermaine Franklin, not a combination puncher. He shouldn't really trouble Joshua offensively, though he may make Joshua work for his openings. So all in all, I think Jermaine Franklin is a good comeback opponent for Anthony Joshua. And following this, Joshua needs to be active. He needs to fight at least 2 more times this year to try and rebuild some momentum. So yeah, from a matchmaking perspective, from Joshua's career, from a career perspective for Joshua, I think this fight makes sense, quite frankly. However, that aside, let's talk about this from the consumer's point of view. I don't care how big of a star Joshua is, this fight should not be pay-per-view. Jermaine Franklin will not be a real threat to Anthony Joshua. This is a comeback fight. This is a rebuild fight. And quite frankly, more than likely, this won't be super competitive. This fight to me, or this sort of fight, shouldn't really be on pay-per-view. Again, I don't really care how big of a star Joshua is. Putting these fights on pay-per-view is not good for boxing fans. It's not good for boxing in general, or the growth of boxing. I know there's going to be some wet lettuces out there who love to talk about pay-per-view numbers, these absolute nerds who have boxing channels but talk about fighters' numbers more than they actually talk about fights, you know, these types. But as far as I'm concerned, this fight should not be on pay-per-view. This is where the likes of DAZN and Matchroom need to use a little bit of common sense. Actually, instead of trying to milk in every single penny at this moment, actually have a long-term vision. Actually try to build for the future. So DAZN, as we know in the UK, they are desperate for subscribers. Regardless, Anthony Joshua is a big star. Regardless of his last couple of fights, he's a big star, and he's still going to generate interest. If DAZN have any foresight, if Matchroom have any foresight, this fight will go on regular DAZN, because this really, I can't imagine this fight being the type of fight to where people are going to buy a subscription and then buy the pay-per-view. If they put this fight on regular DAZN, I'm sure that would attract a lot of new subscribers for DAZN. And again, if they were smart, they would have this fight on regular DAZN and then make sure the schedule for DAZN in the following couple of months is super strong, so some of these people stay on. Stay on as subscribers, you know. But this is boxing, you know. Boxing promoters, boxing networks, they treat boxing like a going out of business sale. Everything must go, you know. They'll try and squeeze every single penny in the now instead of trying to grow and build boxing, not only for the sport in general, but, you know, the more they build boxing, the better their businesses become. You know, and putting this fight on regular DAZN, I think is a really good opportunity to try and build something, to try and attract a whole new batch of subscribers. And who knows, if your schedule's strong after the Joshua fight, maybe some of these people actually stay on and stay subscribed. But again, this is boxing. Common sense does not prevail. I mean, I wonder what the bookies odds are going to be in this fight. It's a comeback fight, it's a tune-up fight, it's a confidence builder. And again, given where Joshua is, that is fine. But I feel that the price of product should reflect that. And again, this should just be on regular DAZN, not on pay-per-view. But again, these happy clappers, these clowns who run these channels, they'll say, oh, Joshua's a pay-per-view star regardless, blah-de-blah-de-blah. They are, fundamentally, most of these boxing channels are anti-boxing fan, they are anti-consumer. They would rather get fucking charged up the nose to pay for mismatches, basically. And it makes me wonder, I've said it before, I'll say it again, how many of these guys are on the payroll? Answer is on a postcard, you know? So yeah, I mean, listen, I'll reiterate one last time. Considering where Joshua is, this fight is fine. However, if it's a pay-per-view, then the opponent isn't good enough. As far as I'm concerned, we have to be a lot more militant when it comes to these boxing promoters and what they offer up. Should not be a pay-per-view, as far as I'm concerned. But there you go, that's just my opinion. I believe Joshua gets rid of Jermaine Franklin. I believe he'll stop him mid-rounds. I don't think he'll have too many issues. The only alternative, though, to where they could make it a pay-per-view is if they had a super stacked undercard. And going by DAZN or Matchroom UK's track record in the last couple of years, that's not going to be the case. So, yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. Share your thoughts below. What do you make of his comeback opponents? I think it's ideal for Joshua, but again, there's the pay-per-view element that you have to factor in here. Share your thoughts below. Beanie Guy Delboy. Peace.